If you've been working in Switzerland for a few years, you're probably paying into the second and third pillar, but are you using them strategically? Because contributing extra to your pension might save you taxes, or it might lock your money into a low return system for decades. You could also have forgotten pension assets sitting in an account you don't even know about and never claimed. And if you take out your second and third pillar in the same year, that could cost you thousands in extra taxes. In this video, I'll show you 5 common Swiss pension planning mistakes that expats make and what to do instead to keep more of your money working for you. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Aysha van der Peer. I'm a cross-border investment specialist in Zurich, Switzerland with 20 years of professional experience in finance and a background that spans New York, Dubai, Amsterdam, Munich, and the UK. And on this channel, we dive into the financial questions that matter most to high-earning expats and anyone managing their finances across several countries. I get messages all the time that some of you didn't realize you didn't subscribe, so if you could do me a favor and double-check you are subscribed to this channel, that would be tremendously appreciated. This is the free thing that you can do if you have an interest in learning more about optimizing your finances as an expat to grow a large retirement portfolio. It also helps me making sure I can keep this channel alive and continue to make the time to create these videos. So please double check if you're subscribed, and thank you so much. And before we look at these mistakes, let's have a quick look at the Swiss retirement system, because the way it works is usually why so many people, especially expats and especially women, end up being underprepared. The first pillar is AVS or AHV, which is designed to cover your basic living expenses, and it certainly does not match a full income, and it's not enough to live in Switzerland. This is the equivalent of a state pension, and it's mandatory to contribute to it as of a certain age. The second pillar is what we call an occupational pension, and this one is tied to your employer. That's what your employer retains from your salary and also what they contribute to. It's mandatory for employees who earned over approximately 20,000, and initially it was meant to cover the remainder of your living expenses. However, now this is wishful thinking, which is why doing a third pillar, which is a private pension, voluntary, is an absolute must. It allows you to build up savings for retirement, grow a portfolio, it has tax advantages, and this will help you make sure you can sustain your lifestyle in retirement. With that context, let's now look at the 5 very common and expensive, mind you, mistakes that many people, often expats, make when it comes to pension planning, AHV, AVS, and pension strategies. The first mistake is quite controversial. It's contributing extra to your second pillar, to your employer pension fund. Now, this is very controversial because some people say you should definitely do that because you save on taxes. Some people say, no, you should not do that. It's better to invest privately. And the reality is that it depends. So essentially, if you don't know how to invest, if you don't want to learn how to invest, if you are terrible with money and you are spending everything, you have debts, you're a disaster with money basically, then contributing extra to your pension fund makes a lot of sense, okay? Because you cannot trust yourself with investing that money yourself or managing that money yourself. So when you contribute it to the pension fund, at least it's there, you save on taxes, and that makes sense. Now, when you understand how investing works, you are better off investing by yourself because the returns that you get on the money that you invest privately is much higher than what you get on contributing extra to your pension fund. Now, there are a couple of exceptions across Switzerland, but they are very rare, where the pension fund pays out good interest every year on your contributions, but that's very rare. In 99% of cases, people who invest by themselves, when they do it right, obviously, and for that, look at the resources below, then they end up way further investing by themselves than contributing to the pension plan. And that's especially if you're more than 5 years away from retirement. Because if you invest your money by yourself, which is a great way to go about it, when you know how to invest because you get higher returns, then it can make a lot of sense to actually contribute extra to your pension fund just before retirement. And by that, I mean 5 to 3 years to retirement, because you can withdraw your pension assets if you've contributed extra within the last 3 years. Making extra contributions makes sense because you save on taxes, and at the same time, your money doesn't get stuck too long in the pension fund, missing on the additional returns that you will get if you were to invest that money privately. This is specifically applicable if you're looking to do a full withdrawal of your employer pension, and whether you should do that or not will be the subject of a future video, so stay tuned. The second mistake that a lot of people do is that they have unclaimed pension assets lying around. And this situation happens, for example, if you had a summer job or a part-time job or temporary job a long time ago in Switzerland, and they contributed to a pension fund on your behalf, but then after you left, you didn't know much about it. Maybe you were young and that was not exactly on your priority list, and they lost trace of you. And so you have these unclaimed pension assets that were at some point transferred from the employer to a vested benefits account, which sits there unclaimed. And so if that might be your case, there is a service called Kala that you can use to retrieve any lost or unclaimed pension assets. And you do that, it's free, it's very fast. You submit a form online, and in a couple of weeks or so, they come back to you with what they have found. And if they find some unclaimed pension assets, then you can go ahead and claim them. And if you are employed and contributing to a pension fund, you are required to bring them to your current pension fund. The third mistake that a lot of people do around retirement time is to withdraw your second pillar, your employer pension, and your third pillar, your private tax advantage pension, in the same tax year. Because pension capital withdrawals are taxed separately at a reduced tax rate, but if you do several of them in the same year, they are added together, and then that raises the tax rates overall on these withdrawals, which you can easily avoid by splitting your withdrawals over several years. Another tactical mistake that a lot of couples do is to withdraw one of the partner's pension completely to finance a home acquisition, for example. And this is a big risk, because if that spouse passes away, the surviving spouse will only be entitled to 60% of the pension allowance of the deceased spouse. But if there is nothing left or very little in that pension plan, then the survivor allowance can be very, very diminished. And obviously, I'm very sensitive to that, having lost my husband several years ago in an accident. And so these things do happen. And it can lead to a drastic reduction in annual income for the surviving person, and especially if that person also have to care for children. And so the better way is, as much as possible, to ensure that the pension funds of both partners is equally full, or at least there is some degree of balance between the two. And the last mistake is also a little bit controversial, is withdrawing your pension assets to purchase a home. And this is a little bit controversial because a lot of people do that, especially since home prices are quite expensive in Switzerland. And so for a lot of people, withdrawing pension assets is the only way they can access home ownership. But with that said, once you withdraw your pension assets for your home, you're drastically reducing what you will receive in pension benefits at retirement. And a lot of people withdraw their pension assets without fully understanding the consequences it will have at retirement, because yes, in many cases they might have an expensive home that will be very expensive to maintain in retirement, especially considering that their pension benefits will be considerably reduced. And so this is something to really take into consideration. One alternative is to pledge your pension assets for your home instead of withdrawing. Now, this also comes with some implications, and it depends on the situation whether that makes sense or not. So those are 5 pension planning mistakes that can end up costing you a lot of money, especially if you're an expat navigating the Swiss system. And a few well-informed choices now can make a significant difference to your future retirement income. If you want more insights like this, make sure to subscribe to this channel. I cover pension planning, investing, and financial strategies for expats living in Switzerland and those with a multi-country context. You will also find helpful links in the description below with resources to help you make the next step in your investing and pension planning journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.